All right, so yeah, I'm Gabe Smith. I work for Price Effects. I've been there for about 10 years. Actually started the U.S. business for us literally a decade ago. Our U.S. office is here in Chicago, but we're originally a German-based company. And I was at another price optimization company for about 8 years before that. So I've been in this industry now for about 18 years in pricing optimization and management. Started off my career in manufacturing at Cisco, high-tech manufacturer, not Cisco Foods, Cisco Systems. Cisco Foods is actually a client of Price Effects, Cisco Systems not yet. So I had a lot of experience there in both pricing as well as incentives, rebate structures. We actually built a bunch of custom systems that I helped program manage around the value incentive programs, OIP. And my first job out of school was actually doing the programming for the CPQ and pricing for all of Cisco's products. So that's where I kind of cut my teeth on quote to cash and pricing, and then got involved in all the incentives, and then spent a lot of time with global manufacturers and distributors on implementing pricing optimization solutions. So that's me. I split time between Florida and San Jose, California, and a father of two. And yeah, I'm looking forward to speaking to everyone. We have a pretty small session, so I have time for Q&A at the end, but if you feel like you want to ask something, we can be informal. It's no big deal. Just feel free to raise your hand. I am going to ask some questions, so I want to be a little bit interactive here. I'm not using Slido because they had, some issues with that in the past, but I'm using Shauno. Shauno's over here, so as he raises his hands, he's going to take pictures, and then we're going to count, so it's kind of old school. That's how we're going to do it. All right. So who's Price Effects? As I mentioned, we were founded in 2011 in Germany. Actually, there was 3 co-founders, and one of them had a garage. It was in a small town named Pfaffenhofen, just outside of Munich. That is still our official headquarters, believe it or not, although our largest office is in the Czech Republic in Prague. And as I mentioned, we're here on Wacker as well in the Bank of America building in the US. Have a couple other regional offices. We have about 500 or so employees now. Worldwide presence, we're operating in about 37 countries. We're all kind of pricing professionals and software professionals that have experience either for other pricing software companies or as pricing practitioners ourselves. We've deployed a bit over 350 successful projects at this point. And I think the most impressive probably stat up here is the 98% customer retention rate, which for folks that are in enterprise software, that's extremely high. We're extremely proud of that number. I think it speaks to obviously the stickiness of what we do and the value that our customers are getting out of the solution. We have about 200 or so customers now, and you can see some of our key partners, obviously Enable, that's why we're here. Also global system integrators like Accenture, Deloitte, and PwC. SAP's also, we're in a doorstop for SAP, so we have some pre-built integrations there as well. To give you a sense of our clients, this is kind of our NASCAR slide, so to speak. This is a kind of a selection of some of our clients. You can see that it cuts across manufacturing, both discrete manufacturing, process manufacturing, wholesale distribution. We have customers in retail and some other areas as well, but this is really where we focus our time and effort. So we have industry teams that are devoted to each of these. We have a set of clients that I think is pretty impressive. Some of whom, actually, a lot of the more impressive ones we can't use on this slide, but we can speak to them like Shell, Exxon, AMD, et cetera. But the NVIDIA is a client as well. But we have a whole range of clients from down to 100 million or so in revenue up to hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue that we're managing. So we built a very solid platform. I'm not going to talk a lot about the solution today because I'm focused on this kind of idea of commercial agility and the value of that. But obviously that's something that we enable for our clients. So what I want to talk about today in the interactive Shauno part is going to be the straw man poll on how fast you are and how it compares to some of the numbers that we see. Talk about the power of speed and kind of then the difference between speed and agility. There's been a lot of talk about speed, and speed's great, but I want to talk about agility and what the difference is and what that means. Talk about the benefits of pricing agility to an organization, and then go into a case study and then I'll open up for questions and answers, and let you guys get out of here at that point. So the first question I wanted to ask the audience is, would you consider your organization, so actually first I should start with a show of hands of how many people here are in a pricing role for their organization? Okay, only a couple, okay. So Kind of, sort of. Okay. Or if you have visibility to a pricing role, to the pricing kind of process, and you understand that, that's fine too. So, so what I wanted to ask is this question, right? How long would it take you, does it take your organization to respond to a change like a tariff, including the analysis and the implementation of a price change? So if we could just have show of hands for the folks that are in the room that have visibility or responsibility to this. How many people take less than 1 day to do that? Okay, no hands. How about between 1 day to 1 week? And also, if you have, in your past, if you have visibility to this, that's okay too. So 1 day to 1 week, no hands. Okay, 1 week to 1 month? Okay, so 3 hands, 4 hands for that. 1 to 2 months? Okay, a few hands there. And that should be a greater than 2 months, actually. I got the sign wrong. Okay. So no one, that's good. No one more than 2 months. All right, so I took a quick poll leading up to this to just kind of get a sense of what was out there. The end's not too large. One of the reasons why I wanted to have an interactive kind of session here is so we can add to this. But you'll see here that the results are pretty similar, although if we start at, let's start at the less than 1 day. So about 14% of clients or people that we surveyed here are able to do this in less than 1 day. That's a pretty high overlap with clients that we have. That's part of what we do, right? 1 day to 1 week is at 29%. So you've got about 43% of clients or customers that are able to do this in less than a week, right? But then you move over into this kind of left-hand side where you're getting slower, obviously. So a week to a month, 29%. And over 2 months at 17, and 1 to 2 months there. So that left-hand side, you've got over 50%, right? That's, what is that, 57% of customers that are taking, a good amount of time, what I would consider, not best in class, right? And so basically one of the main things that we help clients do is to move, from the slower ones to the faster parts of this. And part of what I want to talk about is the value in doing that, right? So let's get into it. So does anyone know Gary Vaynerchuk? He's pretty interesting. He says some pretty outrageous things, and I don't know where he came up with this number, but it kind of stuck in my head. So I thought I wanted to share it. That speed is 4 billion times more important than perfection, right? Obviously, when we're talking about pricing, you want to get it right. There's a high cost if you don't, but this is just study it time and time again. When you look at kind of the value of moving fast, it's certainly something that is important and shows results. Now, what kind of results are we talking about? Well, if your business was very simple and you could just go from point A to point B repeatedly, and it's about how fast you do that, there might be some businesses that applies to, but in reality, it's more complex than that, right? We live in a complex environment. Most of the companies we work for are global. They're omni-channel. We have all these different regional forces, market forces, obviously cost, supply chain. The tariffs. I'll try not to say the T word too much, but really, what we're talking about, I think, is more analogous, to like an F1 race, right? Where you're talking about not only moving fast, but being able to change direction and maintain speed, right? And so when you think, and I love the analogy. I was actually just at the Miami F1 Grand Prix this weekend for the first time. It's a great race. If anyone into F1 here, I see a couple smiles. Yeah, it's cool because I think a lot of people have gotten into the Netflix series and everything, right? It's gotten a lot more traction in the U.S. recently, but I've gotten really into it, and I think it's a great analogy for businesses because you've got all these different systems, all these different variables, all these different team members that are trying to optimize different parts of the vehicle and cater to the specific track that they're driving, right? So I think there's 24 F1 races in a season, and the one that they just did in Miami, it has 19 different turns. They all have different setups, so they all have different cars that they bring. They actually tweak the cars quite a lot, even from during the weekend. They'll put in different aero kits. They'll do different things with the tires. They'll figure out how to tweak the engine. So they create something like 2 terabytes of data in a day for one of these races. and they have all these systems that go all through this. And there's people, there's tech people, there's aero people, there's engine people, tire people, right? So there's this huge team of people that are trying to optimize the performance of the vehicle. And I think it's really a good analogy for pricing, right, in an organization, because we have generally, product people, we have marketing, hopefully we have pricing professionals whose job it is to optimize pricing. But we also have, technology people, we have sales people. So it's really, across a very collaborative effort, and you have to instill the right strategy and the right culture, and obviously the right systems, the right people, and the right process to enable that, right? So I'm not going to talk a lot about tariffs because I figured everyone else would, right? But I thought this was pretty telling, kind of along the F1 theme as well. So if people have been following F1 for a while, you'll know that Mercedes had a huge run with Lewis Hamilton where they won like 7 constructor and driver championships in a row. So really dominant, right? F1 didn't like that very much, so they put in a set of rule changes starting in kind of 2021, 2022, which capped the amount that they could spend, had more, a bunch of different rules. I'm not going to get into all the technical aspects of things, but if you look at this quote from James Allison, who was their technical director, he basically said, that in his opinion, it was the most impactful set of changes in the history of F1, right? And so you look at what happened to Mercedes after that, and they didn't win the Constructors' Championships. So this is, I think, analogous to the current situation with tariffs, right? Where you have this huge change of the rules, right? That happened almost overnight, and it's about, how do you respond to this? And it'll create a lot of opportunities for people that are able to move with speed and agility to capitalize on that, and it may mean that people that are in market-leading positions are exposed, especially if they have older systems, older processes, they're not able to respond to the changes quickly. One thing that I was reading about when I was kind of researching that whole change of rules was this interesting quote by Lewis Hamilton, who was their driver at the time. Lewis Hamilton has since fallen out with Mercedes. He now drives for Ferrari. And he said basically that he told them that this was going to be a problem, right? That the set of changes that they were proposing to the car were going to cause a set of issues. And they kind of said, yeah, Lewis, we know what we're doing. We're the technical guys. You're the driver. Just drive the car, right? And mid-season, they kind of came back to him and they said, yeah, you know what? You were right? You're pretty much right about that. So just a reminder. I mean, a lot of us that are enabling technology or setting pricing and doing all this analysis, we are obviously very focused on a certain outcome, but we have to remember that sales, while we often discount what they say, and rightfully so, because they'll say things that are based on a procurement playbook, or you kind of have to take some of what they say with a grain of salt. They are the closest to the customers, and particularly in times of change when you're implementing policy pricing changes, you do have to kind of, I would say, focus especially on seasoned veteran salespeople, which is, I think, analogous to what Lewis Hamilton represented on that Mercedes team. Don't discount what they say, particularly if they're have been around a while and you've developed a rapport and trust with them. So just a reminder there. So let's talk about pricing agility specifically and where it matters, right? Really, these are the two. There's a few different areas, but these are the two biggest ones, I would say. Quote response times, and particularly as it relates to win rates, and then dynamic price changes. These are the two areas where manufacturers and distributors will see the biggest benefits, particularly in B2B, from more dynamic pricing and better systems and processes around them. So, quote response times. I was looking for this. I've been looking for this for a while, and actually ChatGPT helped me out a lot with this, both in terms of finding the supporting information and actually generating the graph. So that was really helpful, because I attended a pricing conference probably 5 years ago where they had done a study. A large manufacturer had done a study where they had correlated these things, but they didn't talk about the actual numbers. But these numbers are pretty I mean, they were mind-blowing to me. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. When you look at, particularly in distribution and wholesale, you look at the difference between the win rates. So this is comparing a fast response time to a quote of 24 to 48 hours or less to a slow response time of 48 plus hours, and the difference in win rate. So look at the distribution. How many people here work in distribution? Okay, in manufacturing? Okay. So the distribution, that's obviously the biggest difference, right? It's about 30% difference in win rates. I mean, think about that. Say if you quoted $100 million over a certain time period, you're gonna win $30 million more dollars, right? That's pretty crazy. Like, there's not many things that have, and so how do you enable this, right? So the way that you enable it is by using the data that you have, both from the transaction data as well as the data that you have from your suppliers if you're a distributor. I think one of the other speakers was talking about trying to, I think it was Andrew that was talking about a client that was trying to predict what the support level would be from a vendor, right? That's one way of doing it, but also just using the data that you have and having optimized pricing that's going out and guiding the salespeople on what they should be offering to a client in a manufacturing setting. Both of those things can allow you to operate in a much better way. And obviously just the business process piece of CPQ and agreement management is a huge impact has a huge impact on win rates and response times. So that's the first area. That's what we've seen that in our customer base quite a lot. We have clients that have talked about 85 to 95% reduction in quote cycles times. We haven't seen this clarity of win rate impact in those cycle times from our customer base, but this is based on a McKinsey study that was done in 2022, so fairly recent, and like I said, pretty mind-blowing. And they also talked about in that same study about distributors updating pricing dynamically and what the impact there was. And basically that distributors specifically that are biweekly or faster price changes are seeing 2 to 4% margin gains over those that are quarterly. Another study talks about faster price adjustment capabilities, reducing margin erosion, particularly during the COVID supply chain shocks, by 3 to 5% for leading distributors. And lastly, Simon Kucher, who's a kind of specialized management consulting firm around pricing strategy and tactics, talks about margin volatility tripling when cost changes aren't passed through within 30 days, right? So what I kind of set the stage there, and I want to talk about our specific example of this, in a case study that I wanted to bring to the table. So this is an example of about a $3 billion food service distributor, and they face the similar challenges as a lot of distributors face, right? Hundreds of vendors, tens of thousands of customers and products, tons of different price points out there, different channels that they're selling through. And really, the result of that was that their price changes took them between 1 and 3 months, depending on the product category, to implement, right? So as part of putting together a value case and a proposed return on investment for them, we actually took a look at their data. We walked through it with them. We actually have a team that's focused on this. Actually, we have a team, and then there's one guy that's really focused on this. He's our value ambassador, a guy named Hartwig, and he sat down with me and a couple other folks, and we took a look at their data, developed this business case with them. And so we looked at their margins, we looked at their current cycle times, we looked at a set of factors, and then by looking at that and figuring out, okay, if we can reduce this from 1 to 3 months down to a day or less, which we can do, and we will, we have done. What's the impact of that? Just that, not the intelligence, not price optimization, just being able to reduce margin compression by moving more quickly on these kind of changes. The impact, so the idea there is basically enabling dynamic price changes within 1 day. We are talking with them about doing some cost prediction, and inform that obviously, and then also understanding willingness to pay on how you would pass cost changes through in terms of price. But the impact here that I'm going to show you here is just from the reduced margin compression, not from the intelligence. I'll talk about that in a minute. So just by moving from 1 to 3 months down to 1 day for a $3 billion distributor, when we looked at all their data based on a set of factors and they signed off on this, $4 million per year in avoided margin compression, just from that, right? Now, you can make the case that's just speed, right? So what is agility? Agility would be then applying AI, applying intelligence on where you think costs are going to move, being able to move maybe even ahead of some of those things and creating float, and then using AI to determine what the pricing that you're going to propose to your downstream clients is in that same kind of time frame. And that's what we generally do for clients at Price Effects. And these are now a wider set of numbers that we look at. I'll focus on the middle one first. So this is where, if you think about the amount of profit dollars that your organization generates, let's use a theoretical example of a $1 billion company that's making $100 million in profit, right? What we're saying here with this 8.4% number is that after implementing Price Effects, on average, our customers would be going from 100 million to 108.4 million in profit. Now, that varies depending on manufacturing or distribution, gross margin levels, a set of factors, but that's the average that we've measured across our customer base. And that's the combination, though, not just for margin compression, but using intelligence, using better business process, better data flows, being able to move more quickly, but move quickly with intelligence to enable and drive more profit, right? So what that represents in terms of how that compares to the investment, it's generally about 15x return on investment of the dollars that we're helping customers go get versus the cost, including the implementation, the total cost of ownership for Price Effects. What we see, and one of the reasons why SAP likes to partner with us, is that when SAP is moving someone from on-premise, one of the other speakers said that 80% of SAP customers are still on-premise. That was Andrew as well, I think. So they still got 4 out of 5 customers to move. One of the reasons why they haven't moved faster there is because the ROI numbers are hard to justify. They're very expensive, very invasive, very long projects that cost tens of millions of dollars, and it's very difficult for them to basically defend what is the ROI on that. Like, okay, you can move faster, but when we come in and can tag team with Price Effects and SAP together, and you can put forward a digital transformation roadmap that enables price optimization and the speed that we're talking about here, that's when the numbers start to make a lot more sense, right? So that's kind of the value over time that we've measured, and that's from what I would say agility, which is combining speed with intelligence at our customer base, has produced. So that's all I have. I can open up for questions, and if you have anything, I'd be happy to speak to my experience, with manufacturers and distributors, with Price Effects, et cetera.
Thank you very much. One of the things that I've noticed is the internal changes from an ERP, and those sometimes we can make within a shorter amount of time, but what takes a lot of time is the negotiation, the notification, people updating prices. What have you seen as good, decent practices other than, thou shalt take it and get, move on, in terms of that two-way kind of communication as best as possible, but in a fast amount of time throughout the last 2-3 years past COVID?
So I'm having a bit of a hard time finding the question there. So
is there any best practices that you've seen? So there's the implementation in terms of the ERP or Price Effects or wherever you're storing price, but then how do you communicate that out to the
clients?
To the clients, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I've seen a variety of things. I would say best in class is where you have a portal of some sort where you can share that pricing information, or EDI in some cases where manufacturers and distributors are exchanging electronic information around that. But what we also see, and part of what we support is just publishing out the agreements or proposals in an automated way. We also support DocuSign and Adobe Sign so that you can share the information. They can go and take a look at it, sign off on it, say yes, I'm going to buy it. A lot of times that'll be a gating factor for pushing the pricing into ERP, because people, especially sometimes you're creating new SKUs or customer specific SKUs. In those cases, you do want to have a confirmation back before you take the time and expense to create a set of products and schematics and all the things that you have to do in the ERP system. But yeah, so, like digital delivery, either through a portal, through EDI, or even something as simple as DocuSign is the easiest way that I've seen and the most expedient way to communicate pricing. But that doesn't always work. Sometimes you have to resort to emails and PDFs and that kind of thing. So we do have that capability as well in the system, where you can create PDF files or Word documents, and we have different templates that can be customer specific or country specific, that has all of the right terms and conditions and the format and the logos and everything that they want. So it varies depending on the industry, what best in class looks like, I would say. But those are some of the options that I've seen, or some of the what I've seen in terms of the most streamlined processes there. Anything else? All right.
Gabe, in that case study that you mentioned, you said that they were getting updates from vendors to prices kind of in all different formats, all different frequencies.
Right.
How did you solve for that problem to dramatically reduce that end-to-end time?
Yeah, so that was not a problem that we solved. We actually have some partners that do solve that problem. In their case, they were also able to go back and say, hey, I need more consistency here. And they had enough weight with some of the vendors to do that, not all of them. So it was a combination between them going back and asking for more consistency, then using some kind of combination of AI and services to get it into a more consistent format. We do have some capabilities that we can leverage as well around ETL and data cleansing and whatnot, but that's not really our strong suit. So we generally, when someone's in that position, we would usually bring in a partner to help solve that problem. But yeah, we get asked that all the time by distributors, especially because they get PDF here, Excel here. How do I deal with all this? And a lot of times they have pretty big teams of people that are just sifting through all of that information. I wish we had a better answer than that. We don't at the moment, so we do leverage our partner network to solve that problem. So we have a couple partners that are kind of specialized in that data cleansing, alignment, wrangling type of activity that needs to happen. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think one of them's here. They're not our partner actually, but I think DataX, yeah, they seem to be well versed in that. I was talking with them about it over the break, yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone. I appreciate the time. And here's my contact information if you want it. We will add the few hands to the results. I'll put that on LinkedIn and update those numbers. And I really like this quote to end with, which is a Rumi quote that says, as you start to walk on the way appears, right? I think it's important to realize that, we can't get stuck in paralysis and analysis paralysis. The breadth and depth and speed of changes is unprecedented, and it's easy just to kind of get overwhelmed. In Omar's session, I felt like this is what our customers feel like. Like this was completely overwhelming, the amount of information that he's throwing at you, right? And how well versed he is in it, and all of the different moving parts, and how fast it's changing. What did they say? An hour and 24 minutes from when they pushed out a policy change to when it took effect. I mean, when else in history have we been facing anything like that? So I actually gained a newfound respect for what our clients are facing, and it's certainly something that I think is a tailwind for us in the technology industry, for understanding that you need this kind of commercial agility to deal with these types of uncertain situations. But you need to invest in data, you need to invest in systems, and you need to have that AI and intelligence enabled to help inform better decision making faster, right? So thanks a lot, everyone. I appreciate it, and hope you enjoyed it. And let me know if you have anything else you want to talk about. We have a booth over here, and Shauno can also give demos. He does a lot. Thank you.